This is a production of WGBH2 Boston.
Tonight on Greater Boston, we'll start zeroing in on the major conflicts between the leading candidates in election 2016. Tonight, the immigration divide, a wall, deportation, and driver's licenses. Then, they call him the Jackie Robinson of hockey, Willie O'Ree.
They actually had to bring the bus all the way down to the ramp and park it right outside our dressing room door, and then they had to throw a canopy over the bus because there must have been 300 or 400 fans come down and throwing stuff and, making racial remarks toward me.
More on that experience, Willie's love of the game, and his two memorable meetings with Jackie Robinson ahead. Plus, Christina Quinn visits a parrot sanctuary and learns some tough truths about ownership of exotic birds. And finally, my thoughts on the hypocrisy on display in the Supreme Court showdown. I decided to collect a sample of some of the headlines out of election 2016 today. Here they are from Politico. GOP senators break emergency glass on Trump plans. From CNN, Trump predicts riots if he's not nominated after a brokered convention. But chaos aside, we've decided to take a step back from time to time to discuss some of the major issues that separate the frontrunners in the race for the White House. As I said, tonight it's the hottest buttons in immigration. Here's the most recognizable symbol of this debate.
I will build the greatest wall that you've ever seen.
It's going to be a Trump wall. This is going to be a real wall. And it's going to stop people.
And the wall just got 10 feet taller.
Now the leading Democrat is fielding questions on the topic as well.
What is the difference between the wall that you voted for and Donald Trump's wall?
It's a big difference. I mean, first of all, as I understand him, he's talking about a very tall wall. If he cared to know anything about what members of Congress, like the senator and I, have done, where it was necessary, we did support some fencing. Where it was necessary, we did add Border Patrol agents.
Is a wall by any other name, such as a fence, still a wall? Joining me to discuss are Tom Hodgson. He's the sheriff in Bristol County. Sheriff, it's good to see you. Nadeem Mazen, Cambridge City Councilor, and we should note a Bernie Sanders supporter. Nadeem, good to see you, even though you look a little different tonight. You've been to the border. Is the wall realistic and doable, or is it just a symbol for people like you who think we've been far too lax on the issue?
Well, no, it's definitely a feasible option, and it's something that we need to do in addition to...
From end to end, a wall?
Well, end to end, not necessarily. You need to... my position is bring in the Israelis, have them sit down with us, and create a comprehensive plan for border security. Nobody knows it better. It's a combination of walls, seismic sensors, monitoring stations, like the Israelis do. That's the way to go about it.
So you heard this fence thing before. There really is no dramatic difference, is there not? I mean, while there's been tough talk, particularly to try to ridicule Donald Trump and people like the sheriff who believe in this wall thing, it was this tortured discussion about, well, we just support a fence, not a wall. It's the same concept, is it not?
I think there's two different concepts here.
How so?
One is border control in general. Countries can control their borders. It's a good thing to do.
Well, there seems to be bipartisan agreement on that, yes?
Great, but then there's this idea of a wall. If you go to Israel, you can also bring a bunch of other problems back from Israel, like having segregated highways or crumbling and crushing the economy of neighbors for no reason, right? We don't want to do those things. And so I think going to a situation that is very different from ours and saying, let's bring the best experts and spend a bunch of money on something that's not going to work is not the way to go.
But leave Israel out just for a minute. Is a fence really different from a wall? I mean, the concept of having a physical divide there's not as much of a divide as the rhetoric would suggest. Am I right or no?
I think it's important to have border control. If that's a fence, great. If we're talking about a huge expenditure that goes to government subcontractors and contractors that make a big dollar for something that's not necessary above what we currently have, I'm not into
Is there a big difference here, Sheriff?
Look, what Hillary Clinton just said, really, we do some fencing. That's not working. We see it. We know Al-Qaeda is coming through there. They've caught Al-Qaeda members coming through. There's Chinese nationals coming through. There's a real movement on the border.
Yeah, but the biggest problem is people overstay their visas, a la 9/11. It's not people crossing the border. Is that not true?
It's both. It's both. And the unaccompanied minors, I mean, the cost for us for unaccompanied minors alone, for K through 12 education, $7.4 billion.
Well, you're talking about minors coming in. Let's talk about minors and adults going out. Let's hear where the front runners are on the whole question of deportation.
I would not deport children.
We are a country of laws. Going to have to go out, and they'll come back. but they're going to have to go out, and hopefully they get back. But we have no choice if we're going to run our country properly and if we're going to be a country.
Again, how much of a difference is there here, Nadeem? Hillary Clinton was asked that question 3 times in that debate before she finally said, I won't deport children. It was first, we'll give them due process, then something else, then finally the children. The deporter-in-chief is the man they want to emulate. Barack Obama, 2.5 million deported. So is the rhetoric going to be matched by the reality? And why should we believe it will be?
I think progressives on the left are frustrated with a center-right policy from some of our leaders currently, right? And so the reason people hark to Bernie, or the reason people will ask Hillary Clinton 3 times, is because we're waiting for the answer that is different. And it is important to say we're the country that said, bring me your poor, your tired, your huddled masses, and then built essentially an empire, an economic engine on hard work and on innovation.
But why should we believe that Clinton, or let's stay with Clinton or Sanders, will not be Obama?
I think probably
if Obama
Sanders
had said as a candidate, I'm going to deport 2.5 million people, I would bet a lot of people wouldn't have supported him who did, right?
That's right. And I think some of that is inherited in the administration as well. And you can't always just totally, move the whole body just because the head is pointed in a different direction.
Well, he's breaking all-time records. So, but again, same question on the wall. Yeah. Is this realistic? When I hear one of these Republicans say, we're going to deport 11 million people, they got to be kidding, right?
Well, you're not going to be able to deport 11 million people, obviously. But you know what? We do have to expect that people are going to respect the laws of the United States. We can't, you can bring your hungry and you're tired, but not at the expense of the American people. And not only that, but those numbers that you talk about, the 2.4 million, or million, I believe you used, those numbers aren't real. What Obama did was he changed what he called a deportation. What Bush called a turnaway, he called a deportation. So he's really fudged those numbers. And he hasn't
but when you say deportation is real, it's not going to be the Nadeem Maazens line on the border to block it. It's going to be the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. They're the people who don't want deportation. It's low-wage workers, sadly, exploited workers in many cases across the border, who are keeping their businesses afloat. That's true.
Well, in part, but you know what? There's also a lot of fraud going on around that. And what's happening is the people are coming in and they're not paying taxes. And there's a whole host of things. There's about, I think, close to $17 billion that's sent back to Mexico every year of monies that people earn in this country that don't come back into our
Let's talk about something you testified.
Remittance, if it's okay, remittances are one thing, and that's important. It draws people here. But also, there's $11 billion going into Social Security, and those people have no expectations of benefits back from Social Security. So let's not talk about not paying taxes. People are paying through the nose with no benefit.
Well, let's get back to the real issue here. And the bottom line is this. In the United States of America, we have laws. There are 5 million people around the world waiting behind their borders to respect the laws of this country. And what do we say to them? Shame on you. You should have just snuck in with everybody else. We can't do that.
What do we say to them?
I think we say we're doing the best with people coming in through multiple means, and we absolutely need to protect our safety, but we also have to protect our economy. What we say to them, let's make a comprehensive and improved immigration policy that allows for immigration and innovation visas and a whole host of other things that other competitive countries have that we do not have.
We only have a minute or so left. You testified on Beacon Hill against driver's licenses for people here illegally. Trump and Cruz agree with you. Kasich does not. Explain to me why it is not better, particularly for a sheriff, to know where people are, to require people to. This is going to be a different license, so it wouldn't be confused for a citizen's license. Why wouldn't that be something you would love, Sheriff?
Well, because, first of all, what we're basically saying is that, look, you enter the country illegally, you're driving on our roads illegally, so you know what we're going to do? Because you don't meet the requirements of being an American or a legal resident, what we're going to do is we're going to change the law to make your unlawful behavior now lawful.
Well, they're going to drive, but they're driving without a license now with no insurance. How's that helping anybody?
But that's like saying bank robbers aren't paying their taxes, so why doesn't the IRS, start to let them, pay taxes on a foot?
Hillary Clinton was against it before she was for it. Why is she right this time and wrong when she agreed with Sheriff Hodgson?
You're right this time because when you don't allow this type of thing, people go further underground. All of these behaviors, as he said, will continue to happen, especially ones that are violent. We need to bring people and this entire debate into the light so we can actually do the things that we agree on, like protecting the safety of American citizens.
Speaking of that debate, thank you for this debate.
Thanks,
Sheriff. It's good to see you.
Counselor,
pleasure to see you, too. Love the look, by the way, Nadeem, I want to tell you. Later, parrots as pets. Christina Quinn visits a local organization trying to raise awareness about the challenges many people don't consider and what happens when birds, which live a century, outlast their humans. Plus, my thoughts on this horrifying Supreme Court smackdown. But first, to the man they call the Jackie Robinson of hockey. Willie O'Ree was the first ever black hockey player in the NHL, making his debut on January 18th, 1958 with the Boston Bruins in a game against the Canadiens. He joined me to talk about what it was like to break the NHL color barrier and how far the sport has come since. Willie, it's a pleasure to meet you. Thanks so much for being here. You're a Canadian kid, right?
Yes, I am.
And Canadian kids skate before they walk. Is that true?
Well, I believe so, yeah.
How old were you?
I was 3 when I started skating, and I started playing hockey at the age of 5.
Okay, so when did you say to yourself, I'm pretty good at this. Maybe I'm leaving better than the other kids, and I may someday be able to be a pro. When did you say that?
14.
14 years old?
14 years old.
So there were a couple of obstacles. One obstacle everybody could see, the color of your skin.
Yes.
Another obstacle, not only could they not see, no one ever knew about. Tell people what the other hurdle you had to get over was, Willie O'Ree.
Well, my second year playing junior, I was playing in Kitchener, Ontario for the farm team of the Montreal Canadiens. And back then, none of the players wore any helmets, no face shields, goalies didn't wear any masks. And I was in a game, and there was a slap shot. I'm in front of the net. Puck ricocheted off, come up and hit me flat, broke my nose, broke part of my cheek. And I remember dropping down to the ice, and the next thing I know, I'm being placed in an ambulance and taken to the hospital. Dr. Henderson was the surgeon, and I'm laying in my hospital bed, and he came by my bedside and said, Mr. O'Ree, he says, I'm sorry to inform you. He says, the impact of the puck completely shattered the retina in your right eye, and he says, you're going to be blind and you'll never play hockey again. I got out of the hospital, and the first thing I said, well, the doctor didn't know the goal that I had set for myself and the dreams I had about playing professional hockey. And I had a patch over my right eye. Within the next 10 days, I'm back on the ice skating. Now, imagine being a left-hand shot and playing left wing. To compensate, I had to turn my head all the way around to the right to pick the puck up with my left eye.
And no one caught on to this?
No, when I came back to play, everybody thought that I'd recovered from my injury.
Okay, so when did your chance come? When did you get the call or the whatever saying, we're going to give you a chance?
I went to, I turned pro in 1956 with the Quebec Aces. The Aces were affiliated with the Bruin organization. And then I got the call. They said, we want O'Ree to meet the Boston Bruins in Montreal to play 2 games against the Montreal Canadiens. So I meet them in Montreal, step on the ice, and play against the Montreal Canadiens. And I didn't know it at that time, but I was the first player of color to.
You didn't know it when you took to the ice?
I didn't know I was the first black player. It was just the dream that I had was
to play hockey.
To play hockey. I forgot about everything else.
So how were you how'd the fans receive you, that first game or the next game?
Well, the first game I was skating around and I could see fans pointing like in my direction. Oh, there's a black player with the Bruins.
You know, you've been called. You've know this 10,000 times. The Jackie Robinson of hockey, and I'll tell you, the more I learn about you, you are. We've heard stories, Branch Rickey, it wasn't just because Jackie Robinson was a great player. He had to be the right player, the guy who could deal with all the crap that he ended up having to deal with. Was there any of that with you? Was there any counseling? Was there somebody saying, you're going to take a lot of heat, you got to be stronger than just the hockey player on the line next to you because of the color of your skin? Did you hear any of that?
Yes. Before I stepped on the ice at the Montreal Forum on January the 18th, Coach Milt Smith and Lynn Patrick, the general manager, took me aside and they said, Willie, they said, we brought you up because we think that you can help our club. He says, you may hear racial slurs or remarks, but just let it go in one ear and out the other. You are just another hockey player in the Bruins organization. And basically, I just went out and tried to just, fulfill that and be the best player I could.
And it never got to you? I mean, you seem so strong and so positive. There weren't times where at the end of the game you go back to your room and say, I can't believe I have to deal with this crap. I'm a good hockey player. Why do I have to endure this? There were no moments like that?
There was a moment in Chicago.
What happened?
Oh, well, my first trip into Chicago, the old Chicago Stadium. Soon I stepped on the ice and was skating around. I could hear cheers from players on the opposition. I got into as we're warming up. One of the players, a big, tall, 6'5" right winger, Eric Nestorenko. As we're warming up, he gives me a two-hander right across the ankles, and then he makes a couple of racial remarks. But we're skating around, just warming up. So we, the warm-up ends. We go in the dressing room. We come out. The first shift on the ice, I'm in behind the net with the puck, and I dump it off the boards. And Nestorenko comes in on my blind side. I can't see him. and he comes in and he butt ends me in the mouth and knocks my both 2 front teeth out, splits my lip, splits my nose, and we get into a fight. Both benches emptied. The Bruins all come off. The Blackhawks all come off. There was 92 minutes and penalties, dispersed. I went in the dressing room and got stitched up and everything in it, and I wanted to at least come out and sit on the bench, but Coach Milschmidt said that these fans they want blood. You best stay in the dressing room, and they placed 2 police officers out in front of the dressing room, and I was pacing back and forth trying to listen to the game. But we used to walk up a ramp to go out and get the bus. They actually had to bring the bus all the way down to the ramp and park it right outside our dressing room door, and then they had to throw a canopy over the bus because there must have been 300 or 400 fans come down and throwing stuff and making racial remarks towards me.
Did you ever meet Jackie Robinson?
Twice.
What was that like?
Wonderful. I met him when I was 14. I was playing baseball. I was considered a better ball player than a hockey player.
I heard that,
but
yeah.
They didn't know what I felt in here about hockey. We won the championship. Our team was taken to New York to meet the Empire State Building. You see the Radio Music City Hall in Coney Island. I met Mr. Robinson down at the dugout after the game, shook hands with him. I told him that I play hockey along with playing baseball, and he said, "Oh, I didn't know there were any black kids playing hockey." He said, "Yes, Mr. Robinson," shook hands. I was in awe, really, when I met him. In 1962, the NAACP had a luncheon in Mr. Robinson's honor. I got an invitation through the hockey club. We went to the hotel, and Coach Agar said, "Mr. Robinson, I'd like to introduce you to 3 of our players here. This is, these 2 players, and newly acquired Willie O'Ree from the Hull Ottawa Canadians." And when he said Willie O'Ree, Mr. Robinson turned and made eye contact with me and says, "Aren't you the young fellow I met in Brooklyn?" Now, this was 1949 to 1962.
History meeting history.
I couldn't believe it.
Do you appreciate the place you hold in history?
Well,
this is a big, big thing.
Well, I have a lot of fun. My dad said, "Willie, find a job you love and you'll never work a day in your life." And there's a lot of truth to that.
Can I shake the hand that Jackie Robinson shook? It's a pleasure to meet you, Willie. Willie O'Ree. He's in town this week for an event with the Anti-Defamation League, which is bringing together more than 1,300 students and educators to talk about issues of racism and how we can promote more inclusiveness in our communities. You can find the full interview online, including the invaluable advice Willie got from his brother. It's all at greaterboston.org. So it's estimated that about 65% of U.S. households have at least one pet. That's nearly 80 million families. Of course, owning a pet comes with a lot of responsibility and challenges, but when it comes to parrots, there's a whole host of extra issues people don't even consider. And as Christina Quinn shows us, one New England organization is trying to raise awareness about it all.
Hello. This is Foster Parrots, a sanctuary in Hope Valley, Rhode Island, that houses close to 400 exotic birds.
This right here is a permanent sort of lifelong care facility for homeless parrots.
These parrots wound up here because they were abused, unwanted, or simply outlived their owners.
Part of our job is to try and give them multiple options. Some birds will not eat off the ground, so you got to give them a bowl. Some will not need a bowl, you got to give them on the ground. So it's our job is to basically address each and every individual personality and ability of the animals here. Ideally, we'd have all of them eating, foraging and being able to pull. That's Jub Jub. I think Jub Jub wants your attention.
Is that Jub Jub?
That's Jub Jub. So this is Bert and Jub Jub. Jub Jub's very jealous. Oftentimes Bert gets all the attention because he's big and blue and beautiful, but he gets very jealous and he likes to sort of step in front.
Photobomb?
Yeah, he totally photobombs.
It's not unusual for some parrots to live to the age of 100, and their demands vary widely. Birds who are hand-raised are often human-bonded and have a hard time being around other birds. Some parrots who came from a home where they never left their cages still won't leave. The transition period for many of these birds to adjust to life in the sanctuary can take years. They're very sensitive.
They're very sensitive. Simple changing perches, putting in a new bird can totally disrupt their sort of daily flow, their daily life, and that can cause a lot of issues.
Some birds even have to wear protective armor because they pluck their own feathers to the point of injury.
BB is an extreme mutilator. He will actually go right through his skin, so he's going to have to wear that collar for probably the rest of his life.
As the tour progresses, it only gets louder.
So this is the area of the sanctuary where most people really realize why you can't live with these animals. That's a very natural sound that you're hearing from the cockatoos. And they do that when they're having fun, when they're upset, when they want your attention for whatever reason.
Foster Parrots receives 500 to 700 surrender requests annually from pet owners who just can't take the noise anymore. Co-founder Karen Windsor says they turn most of them away, taking in mainly birds who are in life or death situations. But she says that all of this means we need to reevaluate the roles pets play in our lives.
A cage is not a stimulating environment for these animals. They're really complex. Their psychology is complex. So, probably the number one form of abuse of parrots in captivity is neglect, and it's that benign neglect. When we walk out the door and when we fail to provide that companionship, that is probably the most prevalent form of abuse of parrots in captivity.
Windsor says if you really think you're up to the task of taking a parrot home, don't buy one, but adopt. And make it more about what you can give the bird instead of the other way around.
Christina Quinn joins me now. Hi, Christina. That was great. I read that these human-bonded birds, as you call them, try to mate with their humans. Yeah. Now, assuming they don't, what happens then? What happens to the bird?
Well, so they reach sexual maturity and they try to mate with their owner, but then they can't. They're human owner. They can't. They become obsessed with their human owners because it's the only social interaction they have. But then they get really hostile toward other members of the family in the household.
Because of that?
Well, yeah, because they can't
consummate the relationship or whatever. I mean, that is true, right?
Yeah, that's the case, yeah.
So they live with anger? Is that the deal?
Well, in some cases, yeah. I mean, those cases, yeah, where they're not satisfied, yeah.
So you said as long as 100 years, some of these can leave. So you buy a parrot, you love a parrot, you connect, this human animal thing happens, and you die. Yeah. And the parrot lives 40 more years. What happens?
Well, if you plan it out right, you create an endowment for them. So you write into your will.
Literally.
Yes, literally. Yeah. So the parrot sanctuary, they have these things where they have parrots who have moved in and they're being taken care of under an endowment.
That's terrific.
Yeah.
And I also read that a lot of these birds, exotic birds, die from heart attacks. Why?
So the birds that are in captivity, yeah, they get heart disease because they're not flying 20 miles a day like they would be out in the wild. Yeah, generally they're flying about 20 miles a day out in the wild.
So it's like sitting on a couch, essentially, for humans.
Yeah.
Can you end with 1 second of good news? Is there any good news in this?
I guess the awareness point, there's that. They say, if you're going to adopt a bird, maybe you should adopt two because that way they can keep each other company.
Well, that's beautiful.
So.
And then they can hopefully do what they can't do with the owner. Maybe. Christina, thank you yet again. Good to see you, Christina Quinn. Thanks. Time now for tomorrow's Globe tonight. Your first look at Friday morning's Boston Globe is city editor Steve Smith. He's wearing green, as am I. Hello there, Steve. Happy St. Patrick's Day. And what are you featuring tomorrow?
Top of the evening to you, Jim. Mr. Walsh goes to Washington again and again and again. The peripatetic mayor has made 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue a regular stop in recent months. What a difference a couple of years make. When Walsh was elected mayor in 2013, Vice President Joe Biden wanted to make a congratulatory phone call. He rang up the wrong Marty Walsh.
That was great.
It seems now, though, that the White House has the right Marty Walsh on speed dial. The mayor has gone there in recent months for events related to gun violence and the $15 minimum wage. A top advisor to President Obama, Valerie Jarrett, told our Andrew Ryan that Walsh is one of her favorite mayors, in part, she says, because of his ability to take ideas and translate them into policy.
So in part, is he filling the vacuum left by Patrick? And obviously no one will fill Ted Kennedy's shoes, but is that what we're seeing here or what?
Absolutely. That is what analysts point to.
Wow. What else you got?
Every night, college-age students lugging backpacks head to their beds. But we're not talking in this instance about Harvard or MIT students in Cambridge. We're talking about homeless millennials who trundle to a shelter where they find succor in the basement of a church. It opened in December 2015, and by the dozens, these 18 to 24-year-olds are finding a respite from the streets.
Steve, thanks so much. We'll be looking forward to the paper. Appreciate it. It is disgraceful that GOP senators in Congress have decided to hold no hearing for Merrick Garland, the president's pick to replace Justice Scalia. While Republicans in D.C. are walking lockstep, One Republican in Massachusetts broke ranks today on Boston Public Radio, saying there should be a hearing and a vote.
He was, quote Bill Belichick, people should do their jobs. President did his job, the Senate should do theirs.
You know, what bothers me almost as much as the Senate refusal to do their job is the Democrats' tortured attempt to say, well, Senator Obama filibustering Alito, that was different. Or trying to explain away then Senate Judiciary Chair Joe Biden saying this in '92 with George H.W. Bush as president.
It is my view that if the president goes the way of Presidents Fillmore and Johnson and presses an election year nomination, the Senate Judiciary Committee should seriously consider not scheduling confirmation hearings on the nomination until after the political campaign season is over.
Or soon-to-be Democratic Senate leader Chuck Schumer from New York saying this in 2007 with George W. Bush having 18 months to go in his term.
We should not confirm any Bush nominee to the Supreme Court except in extraordinary circumstances.
You know, I'm going to stick by my belief that if Mitt Romney were president and the Democrats controlled the Senate and, say, Ted Cruz or even a moderate Republican were nominated, the Democrats would be doing the same thing. But whether that's true or not, the following is true. Barack Obama was elected president by the American people, as was George Bush the elder and younger. Let's not get into that debate tonight. And unless the sitting president nominates someone who is either professionally unqualified or holds views that are wildly out of the mainstream, Robert Bork being an example, they should get who they want, period. I've been saying for years that other than decisions about war, nothing a president does matters more than who is selected to serve on the court. Garland is 63. But when a president picks someone like Chief Justice Roberts or Associate Justice Elena Kagan, they were both 50 then. That man or woman could serve through 7 or 8 presidencies. So hold hearings on Garland and give him an up or down vote. And if you don't like it, work harder to elect someone you do like in November. What do you think? Let me know. Tweet us, email us, share your thoughts. That's it for me this week. Please come back tomorrow for Beat the Press. Emily and her panel will take up the latest media struggles when it comes to Donald Trump and the New York Times crackdown on the use of anonymous sources. That and more tomorrow at 7. I'll, of course, be back on Monday. One more thing before we go. Alongside the list of all the people who helped bring this show to you, Dig is looking ahead to the future of the March Madness tournament, way into the future.
Zoller for 3. Oh, he got it. Zoller now starting to play. Joseph fires. No! Shot clock turned up. Game clock at 8. He's going to do it himself. Thomas, shake, crossover, step back. That's the buzzer. Now Lewis takes a look. Down the lane, Lewis up and one. Down and then cut to the basket after the pass.
Each night on Greater Boston, we go in depth on the stories which affect you most. We talk to people behind the news, and we bring you expert insight and a wide array of views on issues you care about and ones you probably should. Greater Boston, Monday through Thursday at 7.